What if certain words held the power to unlock dormant codes within you? Not poetic quotes or surface-level affirmations, but living keys that shift your inner reality the moment they're spoken with awareness. You may have achieved much, ticked all the boxes, yet, why does the emptiness still echo? It's not a failure, it's a signal, a subtle restlessness, a strange curiosity, a longing for something you can't name. This isn't distraction, it's a calling. And it doesn't arrive with thunder. It comes as patterns, coincidences, echoes, the same thoughts, the same words, returning again and again. You're not imagining it. You're beginning to hear what the universe has always been whispering. The codes are awakening, and now they're choosing you to speak them, because creation begins not with thought but with the word that names, the word that births. Not at all random is that. What you are hearing is the cosmos muttering the codes, and you are going to have a better understanding of what they are today. Creation starts with the verb, which is the first step. The power lies in the word. You are the creator of what you name. You might have made it this far. I was under the impression that alchemy was nothing more than an attempt to transform lead into gold throughout the Middle Ages. It was also believed that Hermeticism was nothing more than a collection of mysterious sayings that were attributed to a man named Hermes Trismegistus. The fact that there is a live blueprint of the human soul hidden beneath those ancient words and strange symbols is something that only a small number of people are aware of. A mystical technology that was encoded in a symbolic language and left behind by wise people who were aware of the secrets of creation. There is more to Hermeticism than just a philosophy. One could call it a science of consciousness. It reveals to us that the mind is the source of everything in the cosmos. It is the case that what is above is equivalent to what is below, that the visible and the invisible are both reflections of one another, that the external world is nothing more than a manifestation of the vibrations that occur within it. To put it into perspective, if that is the case, then the first and main step in altering reality is to alter oneself. That is the process of alchemy. Inner alchemy, which attempts to transform the raw being into the awakened being, is the one that is being referred to here, not the one that involves laboratories and smoking flasks. From the finite ego to the spirit that has been awakened, it is at this point that the four words are introduced. They are more than just counsel on spiritual matters. These four verbs are the ones that make up the outstanding work. In the book Dogma and Ritual of High Magic, which was written by Eliphas Levi, a Hermetic mage who lived in the 19th century, this pattern was codified. At that location, he did not produce anything novel. He also translated. This wisdom was already present between the lines of the Corpus Hermeticum and the Emerald Tablet, and it was also included in Gnostic and alchemical works that were written during the Renaissance. He reorganized it. The verbs in question are not abstract. Both of them are active. The principles of spiritual transformation that they represent are active. Learn from those who are academically familiar with them. Those who put them into practice develop, mainly due to the fact that genuine alchemy is not about altering the external environment, but rather about igniting the ego, distilling the soul, and crystallizing the essence. Until the gold of awakened consciousness is revealed, it is polishing the raw spirit until it meets the standards. Also, each of these verbs marks a significant milestone in the process that is being described. An inscription of them can be found in the symbol of the Sphinx, which is a representation of the soul in equilibrium to itself. For the human mind is to be aware of. Will is the essence of the spiritual vision. The ability to dare is the essence of heart courage. When it comes to the soul, the deepest silence is to remain silent. In the realm of practical Hermeticism, these four are the cornerstones, the concealed framework that serves as the foundation for the entire esoteric system. These verbs have a connection to the inner workings of the enormous task being performed in alchemy. The eradication of the previous ego, the cleansing of the feelings, the elevation of the mind, and the ultimate incorporation of the spirit are all aspects of the process. Every verb functions similarly to a reagent in alchemy, a transforming principle that operates not in the material world, but rather in the laboratory of the self, which is unseen to the outside world. To be aware, to have the desire to be courageous, and to maintain silence. The keys are all of them. Moreover, now that they have been given to you, Let us unlock each one of them individually and delve into the power that they truly possess. The bridge between information and wisdom is the ability to know someone. There is a fact that you have not been told. Accumulating knowledge is not the same thing. In order to acquire knowledge, it is not necessary to read every spirituality book that is now available, jot down every notion, and memorize every symbol as if it were schoolwork. This is because information that is not integrated leads to nothing but dead weight. What you read is not what constitutes true knowledge. Rather, it is what penetrates you deeply. When you take a step back from attempting to comprehend anything, and instead give yourself permission to feel you undergo a transformation. The form of knowing that Hermeticism refers to is not cerebral, rather it is vibratory. There is a sphere in Kabbalah that is referred to as Da'at, and many people do not even formally count it on the Tree of Life diagram. As opposed to the others, it is not present. It is concealed and unnoticeable. And for what reason? It is because Da'at is a symbol of the chasm that exists between knowledge and wisdom. The only way for what you know in your head to become knowledge is for it to travel through your heart and eventually take form in the acts that you take. Where does that gap come from? The thing that taught you more than 100 pages of any book is experience awareness, the silence that exists between the noise and the error that you made. In addition, if you are looking for a real-life illustration of this, you could look at Solomon the monarch, who had the ability to request anything including wealth, fame, and control over nations. However, are you aware of what he requested? To judge honestly, one must have understanding, clarity, and knowledge. According to the ancient chronicles, this is the reason why he became not only the wisest, but also the most rich of all people, mostly due to the fact that abundance naturally flows when there is wisdom. Understanding is the cornerstone upon which the temple is built. In the absence of it, any accomplishment will inevitably fall apart. In the midst of the darkness, that is ignorance, knowing is like burning a torch there. However, theory alone is not enough to keep the flame burning. Spiritual oxygen is required for it. It is necessary for you to view the world with unclouded eyes, free from the cloudy lenses of inherited ideas, the opinions of other people, or fear-based filters. The ability to recognize patterns amid chaos is the essence of knowing. Finding lessons in conflict is the goal here. In spite of the fact that every part of you wants to flee, it is about looking inward. For the purposes of alchemy, this phase is analogous to the stage of nigredo, also known as putrefaction, which represents the metaphorical death of everything you believed you knew. It is for this reason that a fresh perspective might emerge from the ashes of ignorance. There is no such thing as knowledge coming before darkness. It is exactly in the center of it that it is born. In the process of questioning, unlearning, and deconstructing, it is constructed when you give yourself permission to not know. You will not be able to arrive at the philosophical goal of wisdom until then. This has been a consistent theme throughout Hermeticism. According to the writings of Hermes Trismegistus, ignorance is the greatest evil, and self-knowledge is the greatest benefit. That being said, self-knowledge is not an idea. The only way to experience this silent revelation is to fall headfirst into your own shadow and be honest with yourself. When you put an end to repeating what other people have said and begin to pay attention to what your own spirit has to say. Moreover, it is possible that this is the most overlooked key to genuine knowledge. It has integrity. Neither shouting, nor proving, nor convincing is required of it. It is the case. Whether it be by one's posture, one's look, or the quality of one's presence, it is evident. A person who is truly knowledgeable has the ability to completely change the atmosphere of a room without even uttering a single word, owing to the fact that their field vibrates at a different frequency. It is not the ego that is responsible for that. This results from having a connection to the things that are actually important, in order to will the will that is responsible for creating realities. That the torch has been lighted, that the flame of understanding has illuminated the inner cave of consciousness, something begins to move now that the torch has been ignited. It is not overt, yet it is powerful. It is as if something within you starts to heartbeat, yearning to be expressed, to break free from the state of being still, and to break free from the state of passive thought. It is the awakening of volition. When I say desire, I'm not referring to that. Please do not mistake the two. Desire is the thing that is constantly shifting. One day you want something, and the next day you don't want it. And feeling that is combined with impulse want is frequently fueled by fear, by a lack of something, or by comparison. That, however, is not the same as pure will. It is not the will of the ego that we are discussing here. Rather, it is a different kind of will. This is the soul's unspoken summons to action. Not only does it vibrate, but it is that will that does not scream, that does not require any kind of approval or applause. That is something that wells up from within like an unspoken assurance. As soon as you gain access to that, well, you can no longer ignore it. Like an arrow, it pierces you to the core. In addition, regardless of how much time it takes, how many challenges you encounter, or what other people think about you, it remains in the same place unaltered. A genuine will does not require authorization. Your very first breath is what brought you to this world in the first place. It is what serves as a constant reminder that you are not simply here to live, but rather to express something that is singular, something that can only be brought into reality by you. Hermeticism views this inner force as a creative power, the same power that moves the stars, the cycles of nature, and the silent dance of cosmic laws. Hermeticism recognizes this inner force as a source of inspiration. Because of this, Hermes Trismegistus asserted that what is contained within is reflected externally. The reason for this is because when your will is in harmony with the very essence of your being, it reverberates across the entirety of the cosmos. Command, vibration, and creation are all products of will. When it comes to alchemy, that will is the secret fire, the heat that warms the hermetic vessel. If it is not present, there will be no transmutation. Because of the absence of that flame, the lead of unconsciousness does not transform into spiritual gold. And by this, we are not referring about the desire for a brand new automobile, a better career, or a relationship that is flawless. The desires in question are ephemeral. In spite of the fact that you are unable to articulate it at this time, alchemical will is what brings you back to your roots and what drives you toward your goal. It functions similarly to an invisible compass indicating the way to the true north of the soul. This will is what differentiates individuals who awaken from those who are merely dreaming all the time, mainly due to the fact that the world is teeming with people who are aware, who comprehend, and who recite pleasant sentences, but who remain still. Due to the fact that they are lacking this force, the will that genuinely burns, that blazes in the chest like a calling that can't be silenced, is something that they are missing. Does it feel familiar to you? When you have a profound feeling that there is something you need to accomplish, live or manifest, and that you are the only one who can do it, it is precisely this that we are discussing. Moreover, once that will awakens, there is nothing else that can satisfy. You might try to divert your attention, you could try to return to your previous life, or you could try to follow the script that was written for you. However, there is something that has already been touched within you, and there is no way to pretend that you choose not to hear it. Alchemy in its purest form. It is not the one that changes the appearance of things, but rather the one that changes the direction. Because when your will is in harmony with your core self, with your higher self, and with the purpose for which you came to this world, everything else begins to make sense. The puzzle parts are able to be assembled. Suddenly, the coincidences are no longer random. It dawns on you that the cosmos was not working against you. All it needed was for you to recall who you are in order to move forward, to have the bravery to make something happen. On the other hand, desire, regardless of how genuine it may be, is not sufficient. Because even when your heart is wailing and your soul is pleading to be lived, there is still a gatekeeper standing at the entrance of change, and that gatekeeper is fear. A third verb, to dare, comes into play at this point in the sentence. To brave is to move through fear while doing so with a body that is shaking. In spite of the fact that doubt is banging in your head, it is taking action. Standing in front of the unknown and declaring, "I may not know what is waiting for me, but I refuse to stay stuck," is what it means to be brave before the unknown. When was the last time you were completely aware of what it was that you needed to do? Feeling the direction, having clarity, and experiencing that moment when everything inside of you said go are all things that you experienced. However, you did not. You went completely numb. It was overthought by you. Waited for an excessive amount of time. When you asked people who have never been on your journey for help, you felt like you were shrinking in the face of your own greatness. The vast majority of people experience this, mostly due to the fact that knowing and wanting are also internal. However, having flesh is necessary for daring. it is necessary to be present. You are required to leave the realm of ideas and plant your feet firmly on the ground in order to go forward. The act of daring brings about the process of alchemy. The moment that theory becomes life, the moment that the word becomes flesh, and the moment that the intangible begins to take shape begins to occur. In addition, it is not necessary for it to be flawless. It is not necessary for you to have all of the answers, all of the resources, or all of the skills. To be bold is to not wait for everything to be ready before acting. The exact energy that goes along the route is the one that builds the path. It is because to this that paths are opened up when there were only walls. It is the factor that transforms disorder into creativity and boundaries into momentum. This is a point that cannot be questioned in Hermetic tradition. It is not possible to communicate with the universe. In response to action, risk, and energy that has been set in motion, it reacts. It is not enough to simply have the intention to activate the law of vibration. It is vibrating as a result of action. When you take the step, the ground will become visible. When one takes a leap, the wings begin to spread out. Being daring is not about putting on a show. The key is to respect and honor yourself. Despite the fact that your personality is filled with uncertainties, it is the act of carrying out what your soul has already determined. Despite the fact that no one else understands or agrees with you, it is a matter of saying yes to your soul and to the things that are pulsing within of you. To have the bravery to embody your truth, even if it is still just a whisper, is what it is to have courage. When it comes to alchemy, this is the point at which the fire begins to boil, when the raw material begins to stir inside the ethanol, and when the heat of will begins to alter something that is dense and flexible and hardened. And that heat is the result of not being afraid of taking action and of practicing. It makes no difference if the ritual is straightforward or if the gesture is uncomplicated. An entire collection of unutilized theory may not be as strong as lighting a candle with the goal of achieving a certain result. It's possible that writing one meaningful sentence down on paper can be more transforming than the practice of repeating meaningless formulas. Setting the body in motion is the act of concluding an energetic agreement with something that cannot be seen. To throw oneself in the game is to dare to do anything. Having the realization that you will never feel completely prepared is a necessary step. That the fear will not vanish without a trace, but that there is something within you that is more powerful than it, and that there is something that must always be lived. The skill of protecting the sacred which has been forgotten is to remain silent. And it is precisely at this moment in the voyage, when movement has already begun, when the fire has already been ignited, that the last key begins to appear. The one that is the most subtle, the one that is the most overlooked, and possibly the one that is the most powerful. To maintain one's silence. This is not the same as omission. It is not a passive attitude. The problem is not that there is no action. Conscious containment is equivalent to silence. That is the maturation of vibration. When you realize that not everything that is sacred ought to be exposed, that not every process ought to be shared, and that there are times when silence is more transforming than 1,000 words, you will truly comprehend the significance of quiet. Due to the fact that silence, when it comes to the spiritual path, is not silent. This is a container. It is common knowledge among alchemists that the initial stages of every internal activity are delicate, much like a seed that has just been sown. The plant will not sprout if you expose it to too much light. People tend to disperse energy when they talk too much. If you share it with someone who does not comprehend it, you are exposing your invention to the evaluation of people who are unable to see it. And this is where a lot of people get lost. The goal is to communicate, clarify, persuade, and demonstrate. On the other hand, what is still developing within you requires protection rather than exposure. The fire is protected by silence. As a result, the heat is contained within the hermetic container. Because silence is more than just the lack of sound, it is not a coincidence that ancient occultists referred to this technique as initiatory quiet. It is a domain capable of concentrating energetic energy. Here is where power is accumulated, and it is also where magic is solidified before it is made manifest. A premature statement is analogous to opening the oven door before the bread has finished baking. This moment is lost on you. You bring the procedure to a halt. The Hermetic concept of reverence applies to this silence. Respect is shown for the intelligence of those who cannot be seen. Not only did Hermes Trismegistus know when to speak, but he also knew when to be silent. This was one of the reasons why he was referred to as thrice great. It is only those who have learned to contain themselves who are able to properly create, as the word possesses power, but silence possesses wisdom. Furthermore, it is not enough to just keep your ambitions or your spiritual activities to yourself during this time. Silencing the chatter of the mind, silencing the need for affirmation, and silencing the impulse to justify every move you take are all aspects of meditation that need to be addressed. There is a sort of liberty that can only be provided by quiet. Having the liberty to be complete even if one is not acknowledged and accepted. The liberty to take care of your light without currently requiring the presence of another person to observe it. The last step in the process of alchemy is quiet, which comes before manifestation. The time when the matter has already been worked, transformed, heated, or dissolved is when this occurs. Now it is necessary for it to relax, to calm down, and to integrate. At this point, silence is not the end. Specifically, it is the area in which the new starts to take shape. The gold of the philosopher is said to become more dense when there is quiet. The spirit is able to locate its dwelling place in the void of sound. Have you noticed it? There is no hiding in silence. Preservation is the term. It is important to select the appropriate time to unveil. The realization that the sacred possesses rhythm, timing, and layers is what it is. Moreover, that not everything that is true needs to be expressed, mainly due to the fact that certain things can only flourish in the shadows. Silence is frequently the place where great power is created. And at the very moment when everything appears to be peaceful, when you have already traversed the inner paths of knowing, willing, and daring, when you have learnt to be quiet in order to safeguard what is being produced, something subtle starts to take place. A peculiar sensation that is somehow familiar, almost as if you have been here before. It seems as if the voyage is not leading you to a final destination, but rather bringing you back to where you started. Nevertheless, not to the same extent, to one that is higher. The way that time is not linear, but rather circular. Just as if the spirit were moving in a spiraling motion. It is precisely at this instant that you comprehend what the ancient sages have always been aware of. Being wise is not a linear process. In cycles, it moves around, at intervals that at first glance appear to be repetition, but are in fact expansion. Moreover, it is inside this live cycle that the four verbs reveal themselves to be sacred gears that are part of a much larger machinery. It's not like there are steps on a ladder. You can think of them as directions on a wheel that revolves inside of you, because there is no conclusion to be found in profound quiet. This takes you back to the beginning of the process. Nevertheless, the knowledge that emerges is not theoretical, mental, or repeated at this point in time. It has a substance. The fruitful silence, the region where noise has subsided and listening has flourished, is the location from which it originates. This is the kind of knowledge that does not require any form of search to be done. Simply said, it shows up. Clean intuition, clear vision, and a quiet presence that observes without passing judgment are the manifestations of this phenomenon. There is a distinction between this new knowledge and the first. It is not interested in doing anything. It is not in a hurry trying to find answers. It is not fueled by a sense of urgency. Simply put, it is able to observe, perceive, and integrate. In addition, because it is seldom talked about, it is more honest. There is no compulsion for it to defend itself. What's more, because of this, it gives rise to a fresh desire. The difference is that this time it is not a desire or instinct that is driving the desiring. It is a desire that is tranquil, a need that originates from the inner conviction that there is something that is ready to be born and that it is waiting to be born. In addition, when this new desire becomes established, it does not come by itself. Bringing with it the revitalized energy of action is what it carries. However, since then, being courageous does not mean taking a plunge into the unknown. A conscious step supported by previous experience, guided by a will that has already been purified and lighted by a knowing that came from quiet. This is the step that the individual is taking. Noise is no longer considered action. In this way, it transforms into a precise gesture, a movement that is aligned and an intelligent manifestation. The alchemy that occurs within begins to boil once more. The stuff of the soul, which has already been processed by fire and has already been confronted with disorder, is now organizing itself on another level. A new pause, a new time of stillness, and a new opportunity to remain motionless are all things that the cycle will require in the not-too-distant future. On the other hand, this time, it is not as a disruption, but rather as continuity, as if it were the actual breathing of the soul. Act, exhale, and retreat while inhaling. This rhythm, which is concealed from view, is where consciousness grows. There will be no failures, no quick cuts, but just presence. This is the point at which the symbol of the serpent begins to make intuitive sense. The strange image of the serpent swallowing its own tail, which dates back to prehistoric times. This is the perpetual return, the Ouroboros. This is the image that symbolizes one of the most important secrets that the Hermetic tradition has to offer. All things are interconnected, all things recycle, and all things undergo transformations in order to be reborn with more truth. The serpent does not consume itself in order to bring about its own demise. It is also capable of reimagining itself. It is not a jail that this cycle is, but rather progress. This means that you are gaining access to a deeper aspect of yourself with each turn of the serpent. The phenomenon that appeared to be repetition in the past is now being revealed as maturing. At this point, the soul starts to acquire its own language, when the seeker begins to identify the signs with a greater degree of sensitivity. In a new light, the lessons of the past are brought back. What was formerly the same symbol now has a different connotation. That same silence, but with a greater sense of presence. The same will, but with a lot more focus on the future. This cycle of coming back to oneself and starting over is where the truly remarkable work takes place. Not in the form of a sudden miracle, but rather as a continuous improvement. In this cycle, the purpose of the rotation is not to return to the beginning point, but rather to raise it, in order to bring the starting to a new level, with the purpose of making the unseen more and more evident, to bring the sacred closer to the heart of the individual. Now is the time to show courage and take action in the here and now. An example of the unification of four different forces, a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle, appeared in the story. The selection of these four monsters was not done at random. Each of them is a representation of a different verb. Every one of them conceals a mystery about the human psyche. They represent the various manifestations of the same awareness and serve as the pillars that uphold the throne of inner sovereignty. Knowing the human face is important. Reflection, intelligence, and the pursuit of significance are all important. At will, the wings of the eagle are spread, a vision that extends beyond mountains and the aspiration to achieve greater heights. It is not safe to touch the lion's paws. The shout that pierces fear is the raw courage that is required. In addition, the body of the ox is to remain silent. Consistency, patience, and silence, and the power that supports without haste are all essential. The combination of these figures constitutes more than just a puzzle. In the process of becoming enlightened by the light of spirit, they constitute the overall portrait of human nature, mainly due to the fact that genuine spirituality does not suppress the flesh, does not deny instinct, and does not criticize the animal that resides within us. In addition to transforming and integrating, it also directs the beast in the direction of the heavens without tearing it away from the ground. Rather of being annihilated, the beast must be elevated to the status of a divine being. A living example of alchemy is that it is looking inward with a harsh honesty, seeing the rage, the desire, the vanity, and the fear, and not running away from it, but also not giving in to allowing it to consume you. Engaging in conversation with each of these elements and expressing, "Now you serve consciousness, now you walk with me," is what it means to do this. That is the factor that elevates a regular human being to the status of a true mage. They have mastered the art of control over their own beasts. The purpose is not to conceal them, but rather to transform them into creative strength. There is a transformation that takes place when you become aware of the sphinx that resides inside you. It is the inner world that realigns. Structure emerges from what was previously a state of chaos. You begin to have the sense that you have a basis, that you can trust what you are experiencing, and that you no longer have to divide yourself into two distinct parts, the you that you are on the inside and the person that you want to appear to be on the outside. A temple is created out of the beast, and it is within that temple that the prospect of genuine action presents itself, simply because there is no longer any time to wait. Would you agree with me? In how many instances have you put off doing something that you were aware you needed to do, on the lookout for the perfect moment, the right amount of money, the right circumstance, and the correct indication? That day, however, never arrives, due to the fact that the mind will constantly come up with a fresh justification. At all times, it will insist that the moment is not right. It is not present here. Those are not present, but the heart is already aware of it. For quite some time, it has been prepared. Every moment is a magical moment. The most basic things are where transformation begins. There is no need for castles or golden altars in order to live a spiritual life. Your possessions are the first point, based on what you are capable of doing right now. This is a mindful breath, a word that was not said, a glance that is honest, a choice that is truthful. This is what causes the disintegration of the previous reality and paves the way for the introduction of the new era. If you are unable to make a paper ring work, then you will not be able to make a golden ring work either, due to the fact that the power does not lie in the object itself. The intention that you put into it is what matters. Specifically, it is the dedication that you bring to the exercise. There is no point in having whole knowledge, having complete desires, and having complete courage if you do not give yourself permission to take action, and to take action with the capabilities that you currently possess. It is precisely this distinction that differentiates the dreamer from the doer. It is the present moment that calls for bravery. The only time that is truly genuine is the present moment. Nevertheless, there is something that must be mentioned at this point. You may have experienced something, but you have never labeled it. Mainly due to the fact that even after performing, even after experiencing the cycle, and even after touching the sacred, there is a time when everything returns to its previous state of silence. Furthermore, that silence is not the same thing as absence. There is a presence. There is a lot of noise, voices, opinions, and demands on all sides of us. At every moment, the world is urging you to divert your attention, to move quickly, and to evaluate yourself against others. The excellent work, on the other hand, does not scream. It utters a word. In successive layers, it exposes itself. There is a need for room. Silence is required for it. Excessive use of words is not indicative of genuine knowledge. The listening is where it's at. The decision is up to you. You should not share, explain, or post anything that you do not post, since there are some truths that can only be understood when they are lived in private. The soul is able to communicate to itself. Furthermore, not everything that is holy ought to be shown to those with superficial eyes. Silence is considered to be the protector of wisdom in the Hermetic tradition. Emptiness is not the case. The womb is the place where the next creature is being conceived and developed. It is a place where the craziness of the world cannot enter, where the spirit breathes is in this place. Additionally, if you have acquired the skill of being silent, you have acquired the ability to safeguard yourself. You have acquired the ability to take care of your light without the need to display it. The reason being that what is true does not require an audience. The labor that the soul conducts in secret is not displayed. The quality of presence is where it emerges as a manifestation, within the warm and reassuring gaze, in a gesture that allows for healing, if one makes the decision that respects the way. And such work can only flourish in environments where there is a fertile silence, in situations when there is room for the enigma to continue to be a mystery, mostly due to the fact that at its core, that is what keeps everything together, a deep reverence for things that cannot be seen. Moreover, there is something that I need to demonstrate to you before you leave. There is a unique video that has been prepared, specifically designed for those individuals who have made it thus far. An article or piece of content that will delve even farther into everything that you have just found. You will also be shown in a step-by-step manner how to implement these alchemical rules in your everyday life. Please do not depart at this time. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Take a look at the display. In addition, select the video that is currently playing. I'll be waiting for you there on the opposite side of the curtain.